1 year since Russian planes first hit targets in Syria. Moscow's anti-terrorist air campaign has had considerable success in turning the tide on the war there.
The US policy in Syria is in tatters.
Syria is a mess. It's not going to be solved easily, even by Putin.
Вы хоть понимаете теперь, чего вы натворили?
Russian jets hit over 200 terror targets in eastern and northern Syria just over the weekend.
Some members of the international community continue to accuse Moscow of attacking the Syrian opposition forces and civilians.
Russia continues to support the Syrian president, regardless of the criticisms.
US-Russian talks produced results.
Переговоры нужно срочно возобновлять, продолжая работу со всеми без исключения сирийскими сторонами.
Well, the offensive began in September 2015 after an official request by the Syrian government for military help against rebel and jihadist groups. RT's Murat Gazdiev takes a look now at Russia's 12 months in Syria.
September 2015. The jihadists are winning. Islamists are just kilometers away from Assad's hometown. ISIL is pushing in from the east, and the media marks moderate rebels as an endangered species. Jihadists are dominant on almost every front. And on the 30th of September 2015, the Russian Air Force joins the fray. Su-25 fighter jets taking off now. I was at the Russian airbase when the operation began. The pace was furious from day one. Jets took off and landed 24 hours a day. Ground crews worked tirelessly to get them airborne again and again. And the tide began to turn.
The Syrian military is continuing its advance, its offensive.
Initially, the jihadists had no answer to this new threat. Before, they could act more or less openly. Now, they had to hide. It sparked and spread near panic among the extremists. As the months went by, the extremists were pushed back in the mountains of Latakia. Islamist strongholds around the capital slowly crumbled. And bit by bit, Al-Qaeda and ISIL were beaten back in and around Aleppo. The crowning jewel, though, was Palmira. It was here, in this Roman theatre that dates back almost 2,000 years, that ISIL committed one of its sickest atrocities, forcing children to execute prisoners. That was just a part of it. The jihadists then rounded up Palmyra men, women, undesirables, and butchered them. They destroyed here some of mankind's oldest monuments. Since then, Palmyra has been liberated by the Syrian military and the Russian Air Force. But the wounds left by ISIL will take decades to heal, though the healing has already begun. Russian and Syrian orchestras came to play in the very same theatre ISIL had so desecrated. They played in remembrance of the victims of the Syrian civil war and the victims of religious fanatics. An admittedly small but symbolic moment in a country torn and shredded apart by conflict. Yet it was a moment of light. A reminder that despite everything that's happened, all is not lost for the Syrian people. Morad Gazdiev, RT from Palmira.
Well, back in March, the Syrian army, backed by the Russian Air Force, liberated Palmira from Islamic State. Palmira and its historic ruins had been under ISIL's control for almost a year. Its liberation became a symbolic victory over the jihadists. Russian engineers have since completed the clearance of Palmira and defused nearly 3,000 explosive devices. Now, life in the city is returning to normal as local residents move back into their houses. But that's not all that the Russian military's achieved in the country.
Russia has played an extremely important role in trying to bring peace and stability to this country. We have had 5 years of the most appalling, brutal civil war that's been taking place, and the West has found it very, very difficult in its ability to respond. Russia has actually stepped up to the plate and has become involved militarily, and I believe that Russia is doing everything possible to try to bring a resolution to this conflict. It's very unfortunate that in the West there is a great deal of politicians and commentators who are very openly trying to criticize Russia. It's very important for them to try to understand the Russian perspective.